This version of Deadlock really feels like a completely new game. What's up friends, this is Metro, and I just grinded 8 hours off stream to figure out the new meta, and I'll give you a rundown of the big winners and losers of the patch. And before you ask, you might think there wasn't really a lot of balance changes, right? We only saw nerfs to Holiday basically. But the game plays drastically different. A lot of characters got a lot stronger and a lot of characters got a lot weaker. A lot of items got stronger and weaker, but we'll get right into it, okay? And we'll start with the big winner of the patch, or one of the big winners, which is 7, or in general, farmers and jungle characters. Jungling in this game got a lot stronger, okay? And there's multiple reasons for this, okay? Obviously, they increased the amount of creep camps on the map by quite a big amount, right? There's more creep camps, there's more sinner sacrifices to farm, and farming in the jungle is just more valuable, especially because the jungle is easier to farm. Creep camps have a bit less HP. You also do get a lot or a bit less money from them, but an efficient farmer can clear the jungle really, really fast now and can accumulate a lot of money really, really fast. And yeah, the winners, 7 first and foremost, or any farmer that can get around fast, like in Furnace, really strong because you can clear creep camps insanely fast. But the main reason really is a gameplay reason, okay? So obviously the game is 3 lanes now and a 2-2-2 configuration, and then after the laning stage is over, right, you play the game normally. What does playing the game normally mean? In the old version of the game, we had 4 lanes, and you would really like look for objectives, right? Like try to push walkers, try to get all guardians down, and win the game that way. This is not really the main focus anymore because there's less objectives on the map, right? You only have 3 lanes to defend and you have 6 players, which means naturally you're gonna have more free time for the average player to do something else. It is really strong to have 1 or 2 dedicated people that roam around and farm creep camps, okay? You have 3 people that mostly work on protecting your guardians, right? Pushing the lanes. You can still split push. There's not 4 lanes to defend, so you have more time to farm. Wraith is another example of where I think Wraith got weaker in some aspects but stronger in others. So Wraith used to be the best split pusher in the game, right? She was really good at killing walkers and killing walkers solo. It's not gonna happen as much anymore because again, the enemy only has to worry about 3 objectives. So let's assume all towers are down and you're going for walkers. It's gonna be harder for you to sneak a sidewalker. The sidewalkers have more HP, and again, there's probably a more likely scenario that multiple people of the enemy team show up and punish you for your split pushing. But on the other side, Wraith is really, really fast at farming creep camps, can get around the map really fast, which also means characters that roam a lot or need a lot of ganking to win, like Mo and Krill, got weaker in my opinion. Reason for that being is there's a way bigger distance between the different lanes, right? We have middle lane right here, and it takes a way longer time, even with really good rollouts. There are rollouts you can do to get to other lanes, but it is still longer to get to a side lane than before. That means characters that roam a lot and want to ideally participate in a lot of kills and a lot of solo pickoffs like Mo and Krill, right? Where you gank as 2, where the Mo and Krill grab someone and then you have one of your teammates helping you to get the kill. Those characters are going to be weaker because there's going to be less scenarios where you go to another lane and you get the gank off. Ganking in general, or gankers in general, got a quite big nerf this patch because there's a way bigger time investment to get from one lane to another to initiate a gank, right? So there's a way higher risk. The enemy has longer to react, and if the enemy is smart, there's a lower chance you actually get a kill with a gank, right? Before, in Deadlock, we all know if you were in a dual lane in middle lane, right, you could get to the side lane really fast and almost always get a kill if the enemy is pushed up. But now that's not the case anymore, right? The lane you're gonna gank is at least 2 people most of the time, unless someone else on that lane left, right? So it's harder to get a secure kill in a 3v2 than a 2v1, if that makes sense. And yeah, there's way more risk involved and the enemy has longer to react, longer for counterplay. Okay, so yeah. Roamers, a lot weaker. But there are roamers, like Bebop, where you would argue they are probably still about the same power level. Why? Laning also changed very drastically, right? If you haven't read the patch notes, you do not need to last hit creeps or troopers anymore to make the souls pop up, but soul denies are 50% of the overall souls of the creep, right? So denying and being able to harass the enemy in lane becomes way more important, whereas being able to last hit creeps becomes less important, which means characters like Bebop are really, really strong, because characters like Bebop are obviously amazing at denying because they have an instant hit scan laser that can get denies, right? And Bebop is also really good at harassing lanes. I've played about 10 matches. The laning is way more fast-paced, and usually you spend most of your time harassing the enemy, right? And if you push the enemy back, they cannot go for the creep denies, right? They're still gonna be in. So what's gonna happen is, if the creep wave, let's say, is in the middle, in an equilibrium, and you push the enemy back to their tower, or behind their tower, and they're gonna be like around, oh, this tower is scared, the sound is so loud. So, let's say the enemy, I'm gonna go to my side because this tower scares me. So, and the enemy is forced to like back out all the way, right? And suddenly, you can sit on your creeps, wait for for your troopers to kill the enemy troopers, and vice versa, and get all the denies and last hits. And snowballing in lane seems to be even more drastic than before, because there's such a big soul swing for you just denying enemy creeps. It's half of the money, right? So you can end up on lane 1 or level 1 wave. It's usually 300 per team, right? For the 4 creeps. You can end up one team suddenly having 450 and the other team having 150. And that can happen and snowball quite drastically. So lane bullies that are really good at harassing the enemy in lane, pushing them out, are way stronger. And characters that benefit from healing off creeps, like Mo and Krill, again, weaker, because like you don't necessarily want to push the creep wave. Ideally, you want to keep the creep wave towards your tower while forcing the enemy out, right? It's more so a game of shooting the enemy heroes and spending a lot of time shooting the enemy compared to shooting creeps. The only time you really want to attack creeps and push creeps is once you want to push a tower, right? Before that, there's really no value in last hitting, right? The only time there is still value in last hitting creeps or killing creeps is meleeing, because that makes the soul not pop up, denying the enemy the chance to deny your souls, if that makes sense. So, yeah, lane bullies even stronger. The reason I said Bebop is gonna be about the same power level is because Bebop's ganking, roaming ability, that was arguably one of his best parts, right? Where you can rotate to his sideline really quick and get a kill, is weaker because it takes longer to walk around. Which, let's talk about walking. The big winners in this update, in terms of items, is sprint speed. Sprint speed got an insane buff. So, the way sprint used to work before, if you guys don't know, and the reason sprint was like probably the worst statistic in the game, and I talked about this, is anytime you take damage from anything, or anytime you deal damage to anything, there used to be a 5-second cooldown where nothing happened, right? So if you went from creep camp to creep camp efficiently, you know, like, let's assume I don't have sprint here. If I go clear this creep camp, I'm gonna be at the next creep camp in less than 5 seconds, which means my sprint didn't kick in at all. The way it works now is, if you take or deal damage to creeps, the sprint is gonna kick in after half a second, so almost instantly. So look at my character, I'm gonna trigger this creep camp here. I'm gonna take damage and look at what happens, how fast the sprint kicks in once I stop taking damage, right? And the sprint is active, right? So this is like insane. I'll show it again. The animation wasn't really that pretty, but... And the sprint kicked in. It's like almost instant, you don't even notice it, okay? And it also got a quite significant buff against enemy heroes. So if you take damage from enemy heroes or you deal damage to enemy heroes, sprint is gonna kick in after 4 seconds now instead of 5. So it's not quite OP against enemy heroes. It still got better, which means all the items that give us sprint speed inherently got better, right? I am back to buying sprint boots over extra stamina on every single one of my characters. I'm not saying extra stamina is not useful, because there's also a lot of map traversal there where stamina is really useful, but sprint boots is like back to being meta. I think it's a really good item. It makes it feel really nice in lane. Like when I'm in the lane, like I notice this instantly, like where I farm a creep wave. I can't show it off right now because there's a spectate or the observe map. But if I'm in a lane, right? Like notice how this is my normal sprint speed. I shoot, And the sprint kicks in almost immediately. So it's like really nice to get in, get out, chase the enemy down, right? Like if the enemy doesn't hit you, you can shoot him and then let the sprint kick in and chase right after. So I buy sprint boots really, really early in the game, which, okay, again, also makes something like rapid rounds, which was already a great item, really good, because before the 1 meter extra sprint didn't sound like a lot, but now it actually adds up, right? And suddenly you become like insanely fast, like in the early game. Like, look at this. And this is like not even a lot of money, right? Like, okay, I have Boundless, right? And you might think, why? There's a 7. So let's get rid of Boundless. And we're still insanely fast, right? So this is normal walking speed. And as soon as I stop taking damage here around the corner, whew, I'm out, baby. And we can traverse the map really fast. So next thing, that's OP. And now we're gonna talk about farming. This is the most broken item in the game. I don't know why they made the Sinner Sacrifices so amazingly strong. But these items, like the Sting is OP now, okay? And it's for 2 simple reasons. One, there's so many on the map. And they already were, before this patch, the highest amount of souls you could get per minute. Unless you were like insanely farmed, right? They were already providing more money than any tier 3 camp for the time you invest, for any character that is, even something like 7 that farms really fast. But now they give you a triple gold statue buff, and it's really easy to get, okay? So all you have to do is, you punch it 4 times, right? And then all you have to do is make the heavy melee hit at the last blinking light. And there's a really easy trick to do that. You just start a heavy charge melee animation once the 3rd to last lamp lights up, right? So like this, and that's it. It's a really easy timing. It might take you, like a few minutes to get the hang of it, but it's really easy. I'll show it one more time, right? Punch 4 times, and then wait for the lamp to be at the 2nd to last light. Heavy melee, I fucked it up. Hit, if I miss it again, that would be very embarrassing for this. We're waiting for this light to light up, and bang. And it's gonna play the music, and you get a triple buff, right? A triple gold statue buff. And the gold statues do scale with the time the game has been going on, right? They become stronger and stronger the longer the game goes on. So what I do at 8 minutes is I leave the lane, and I just run around and farm all gold statues, or farm all the Sinner Sacrifices on my map, on the enemy side of the map if they're safe. And I get insane amount of buffs, right? And if you do that for a few minutes, suddenly you had like 5-10k gold of everyone else in the game, and you have buffs that the enemy doesn't even see, right? It looks like you're slightly ahead in money, but then you suddenly have like plus 20% weapon damage, plus 20% ammo, plus like 20-30 extra spirit that the enemy doesn't see in your statistics, right? They only see your money. And then you fight them, and you feel unkillable. It's insane, and they're probably gonna get a nerf, I gotta be honest. I think the triple gold statue is too much, and there might even be too many of them overall on the map, right? But that brings me to the next point, which I guess kind of goes back to point 1. Remember when I said junglers are really strong? Characters that can go into the enemy jungle safely, right, or somewhat safe, that have an escape, are also really, really strong. Because what I noticed from my gameplay, because there's only 3 lanes, right, and the map seems to be bigger, even though it's the same size, right, because there is so much focus around the 3 lanes, it is really easy to go over and invade the enemy jungle for a second, right? Like, it's very easy. Like, if I'm around here, remember this room, right? This is like the double gold statue room, or the double Sinner Sacrifice room that we had in one of the lanes before, right? And usually when you come out of here, there used to be a guardian right here, right? And there used to be a lane, and there was most likely an enemy, right? And if they were anywhere close to you, they would hear you farming their jungle. But now the jungle is so isolated, right? Like it's pretty far away from the next lane. Oh my god, there's a walker! Dude, these new walker sounds are fucking sick, by the way. Like, they sound scary. So, my point is, there's way less of a chance for an enemy to be there to scout you, right? So there's way more opportunities for you, if you play smart, to invade the enemy jungle and get a creep camp or 2 and farm this without the enemy even noticing, right? All you have to do is be wary about where the enemy could be, right? Like map awareness and game knowledge matters even more now than before, in my opinion. If you're a smart macro player, so a smart farmer, a person that is really good at knowing where to be and when to be, you're gonna do amazing. And again, your number one priority for jungle should always be Sinner Sacrifices, because they always give you more money than anything else on the map. Unless you find that really big tier 3 camp on the side, which still gives a lot of money, right? But the bonuses you get from Sinner Sacrifice is insane. Okay, which I guess now we can talk about verticality. Biggest winner of the patch, in my opinion, probably Lash. Why? There is a ton of high ground that hasn't been here before that Lash can abuse to do more damage, especially in middle lane. Lash can use these high grounds to do insane damage in mid lane. It's actually really easy for Lash to get up there, right? It's actually really easy for Lash to get up here. If I didn't fuck up the rollout, I would have gotten up there 2 on 7. It's really easy for Lash to set up engagements, okay? Because there's so much high ground around the map, and the more mobile a hero is, the better. Because the faster you can get around on the map, the better, right? So Lash, insane. Which, the opposite of this, long-range characters that deal damage from a safe distance are arguably a lot weaker. So characters like Vindicta and Great Talon, I think, are a lot weaker right now. Why is that? Because there's way less open sidelines, right? It's gonna be harder for you as Vindicta or Great Talon to be far enough away from the enemy to get good line of sight and good damage in, right? Especially if you look at the new way the Walker lanes look, okay? So before, the Walkers were pretty wide open, but now, especially on this side, it's still very close to how it used to be, right? It looks very close. But if you look at the middle lane Walker, for example, there's only really one ally that everyone gets funneled into to shoot the enemy Walker, right? So if we look here, if you're gonna push the Walker, this is like a close alley, right? So if you wear Vindicta, it is hard to get into a position to where you can reliably deal damage to the enemy without them being able to hit you. And I think the most drastic change here is on the yellow lane, or my yellow lane Walker, I should say. You know, it's reversed, it's mirrored for the enemy, where if you walk up here now, it's just one hallway. There's nothing to hide anymore. This is like this is a buff to the defender side for sure, right? Before you still have this like a hallway where you can go in and shoot the side, but because there is like just like a wall in your face and this angle of the wall, right? I have to tank the tower and I have to be exposed to shoot the tower, right? So even on Vindicta, it's hard to find a safe angle, right? Like if you want to be like around up here on Vindicta where I am right now, like if you were here in the sky, you can't shoot the Walker, whereas before you could, right? Or you can't see the Walker. So you have to take a more, like, you have to be more exposed to get damage in. And a lot of the map geometry is changed that way, where there's more big buildings that block your line of sight as a flyer, right? So it is harder to get value out of characters like Vindicta or Great Talon. And characters that have a ton of mobility are going to be way more valuable. Because if a fight breaks out here in the yellow lane, let's say, and I'm in middle, it's going to take me a long time to get there, right? I haven't really learned the rollouts, and I'm sure over time people will figure out faster rollouts for this, right? There's a wall jump you can do here. Why is this climbing me, right? Okay, I'm getting trolled. Okay, I give up. There's a wall jump you can do to this, and then like the rotation, my point is the rotation to other lanes takes a lot longer, right? So characters like Mirage, insane, right? Because on Mirage, you can be anywhere on the map, right? In your jungle, farming, and you can get to the team fight instantly, right? So I really want you to think of this patch as like a new way to play the game. And I know this was a pretty early video. I will keep you updated on all things balance in the next few days. As soon as I notice anything new, if there's something that seems completely broken, I will let you know. I'll upload a new video. But that is my first impression. Well, not first impressions. That is my first ideas of the new balance of this game, right? Play farmers, play aggressive gankers that are fast and mobile, and don't rely on very stationary characters or characters that need solo pickoffs, like Mo and Krill. And when I say solo pickoffs, again, I mean where you gang someone 1v2, right? Team fights, on average, there's going to be more people in the team fight, right? Side lane fights, 1v2 is going to happen almost never again, right? Because there's 2 people per lane. So it's going to be a 2v3 or a 2v4, right? Which you can still use to your advantage on something like Wraith, right? If your team pushes as like 2 or 3 and the enemy shows up with 5, you can still split push and get another walker. Overall, impressions, I think this is really good for the game. I think it makes it easier for the game to get into as for new players, right? But I don't think it loses depth in the long run. Like, I've heard some people comment on lanes being simple now because you don't have to last hit the creeps anymore. I think it makes it more exciting and more skillful because now you can decide, wait, do I want to last hit the creep with a melee or do I want to continue harassing the enemy, right? You can decide, do I want to push the enemy out or focus on denying the enemy? There's so many new things in lane and after that are going to change drastically that I'm really excited for the game. And yeah, in the next few days we'll figure out laning to a T and I'll release a new laning guide because obviously the old one is completely out of date now. But let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for listening. Again, big winners, Lash and 7. Big losers, Mo and Krill. Snipers, in my opinion. Until next time, see you friends. Bye bye.